Just a few months ago, Toronto FC finished second bottom in the Eastern Conference, but things have changed dramatically since then. While MLS record signing Lorenzo Insigne won't be making his way to the six for some time to come, the Reds are almost unrecognizable from last year, having undergone a massive squad overhaul. And the man responsible for the rebuild is here with me, a man who needs no introduction, Mr. Bob Bradley. Qué Golazo begins right now. Hey, Bob. How are you? Thanks for joining.
Good, Heath. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you as well. Let's get straight into it. So you're a head coach and a sporting director. How do you juggle both, and what does that mean in terms of roles and responsibilities?
I think it's similar to other situations I've been in. The work to build a roster, obviously establish ideas on the field. Maybe the sport director part also is more important when it comes to connecting our philosophy with the second team in the academy.
And there's been 17 changes. And how different is it building a roster from almost scratch like you are now with all the changes that you have versus, actually building a roster from scratch? Or are there a lot of similarities when you're building a team for a season?
No, it's much different. Obviously, upon arrival in Toronto, there were just so many different situations that needed to be assessed. There were situations with contracts, players that in some ways in their minds needed to move on. So there was a lot of work to do. And in those ways, we probably still have things that we've got to accomplish. But the good news is that the players in preseason have been really open to being coached. Training sessions, I think, have been quite good. We see some of the ideas starting to develop on the field. So those are our first steps.
And for the club and for yourself, how difficult is it to see a player like Jozy Altidore leave for a rival club in the conference?
I know that the fans in Toronto will always appreciate Jozy and everything he brought to the club. There'll be opportunities when New England plays Toronto for them to show that. But in other ways, as the team moves forward, we've got to concentrate on building the right team and having success in the future.
And speaking of fans, Bob, I mean, how unbelievable has the fan base in Toronto been? Have you had a chance to really interact with the fan base? I've spent some time with a few of the supporter groups there, and it's one of the best in the league, in my opinion. And the atmosphere is one of the best, especially when the team is winning. What's been sort of the reception for you so far there?
I love the fact that the fans are knowledgeable, man. They know the game. Not only do they know MLS, but they're fans of the game around the world. And one of the things that stands out is just the connection between the club and the city. The city of Toronto is diverse. You look at our fans and you see that so many different groups are represented in the fan base. They love the club, and then most of all, they love good football.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I'm looking forward to seeing this team. In terms of, aside from the personnel, what else is going to be different about this Toronto team, in terms of the attitude, the mentality, or what differences can we expect for this upcoming season?
I think we've got to find a way to be a complete team. We've got to have really good ideas going forward. Every team has to find this balance between going forward quickly, being dangerous, being vertical, but also knowing in the right moments when to control games and connect passes. Part of that is to make sure that you're not giving away opportunities in transition. So, you try to find this balance between Man City and Liverpool and try to figure out for each team where the bar works best.
I know mentality is such an important part of the way that you coach and the expectations that you have. And with Michael Bradley, Alex Bono, and Jonathan Osorio being only the remaining players from the 2017 MLS Cup winning side, how do you go about building that winning mentality or that culture within the team when you have so many changes?
I think when you start a season, you establish ideas every day. A mentality is a lot of things. It's personality, it's competitiveness. When we bring a player like Carlos Salcedo in, he's had success. He's a big personality. He's got a great way inside the team with young players, old players. I think we've got some of the right kind of people, and then we all go to work.
Carlos Salcedo is a little bit of a lower profile arrival in terms of the player that he is and the player that he's become. How much did his MLS experience factor into the decision, and how is he adapting to the team and the conditions?
Yeah, Carlos is just a great guy. Came in and right away you could tell how excited he was to be part of it. We know that he's a player that has success. You look at what went on at Tigres when he was there. He's been in big games. He always steps up and plays at the highest level. He makes plays that help his team. And so when you think about bringing a defender in that can make a difference, I think Carlos is that kind of guy.
Let's talk a little bit about the Insigne deal. How did it come about? I mean, not just the team, but for the league in general, it's just such a monumental signing. How did that deal come together?
Bill Manning really understands the fan base, and I think that Bill and the board felt that a player that was really relevant with the fans and would connect in those ways was so important. And look, Insigne, with his personality, with the success he's had at Napoli and with the Italian national team, I think he represents the best that you can find. And so the excitement in Toronto and even around the league is at a great level, because this is such a great player and a guy that people will really love to watch play when he steps on the field.
I mean, it's interesting when a player is coming 6 months out from their arrival. How do you sort of build a team that allows him to hit the ground running when he arrives? And how do you prepare for a player like that, knowing that you've got your other priorities now, but you still got this sort of weapon that's arriving later on in the year?
I think the key is establishing football ideas, where the sense of how the ball moves, the sense of how you get forward and create chances, the structure, the ideas when you lose the ball. And when those things get put in place, it's easy for a player like Insigne to come in and fit right in and understand what's going on. If you watch him play at Napoli or with the national team, you see things he likes to do. Those things certainly fit with ideas that I have with football. So I think we've just got to do our part to build as good a team as possible. And then when he arrives, he'll only make it better.
Yeah, and he's obviously taken a lot of attention since his signing. And for a player like Pozuelo, who didn't have his best year last year and struggled a bit, how do you plan to put him in the best position to be successful for this team in this upcoming season?
I just think we have to find the right way to challenge LA. He's a player that can be creative. I think we're still trying to establish some ideas with him so that his sense of positional play and his patience at times, especially to feel that if he's in a good spot, the ball's going to come to him and he doesn't have to follow the ball and take himself all over the field to try to get touches. And that's a lot of the work that goes on every day to establish good football ideas so the best players can show what they're all about.
You mentioned Manning knowing the fan base. So how much truth is there to the rumors around Andrea Belotti potentially signing on a free this summer? Blink twice if there's some reality to that, Bob.
Well, there's a bunch of names that are still out there. Normally in MLS, in order to make a deal like that, other things have to happen. So it would be sort of early to forecast the possibilities.
And the Eastern Conference looks really competitive this season. Do you think that the league every year is becoming more competitive, and even more so than just a couple of years ago when you won the Supporters' Shield?
Yeah, I think the league does continue to get better. I love the fact that you see more and more teams with a real identity. Not everybody plays exactly the same way. There's some teams that really focus on bringing players through their academies. There's other teams that still look for bigger names. But the mix of styles, the mix of identities helps the league.
And Bob, you and I had a chance to, I worked on, as a player when you were the head coach of the national team, and Canada was never really in our conversations all the time. Obviously, they were a formidable opponent. We always took them seriously when you played against them. But can you explain sort of the meteoric rise of both the men's and the women's sides? Obviously, the women have been better for longer, but the men's national team specifically, sort of the rise of the quality of the player, and where do you think all of that is coming from?
I think that as a football nation, Canada has a lot of things going for it. There's diversity. The Alphonso Davies story is an incredible story when you consider the way he and his family arrived in Canada, and then his growth through Vancouver, and then as he's moved on to Bayern Munich, what he's all about. There's tremendous talent. You see, other players now making their mark in Europe. Jonathan David has been so good for Lille. There's talk about a transfer for him. And the women's program has always had big names. I mean, Christine Sinclair, awesome player. Jessie Fleming is still someone that's fun to watch on the women's side. So great players. And I think the fact that the diversity of the country, the love of football in the country. So a lot of really good things are happening.
It's funny when the time that and Toronto's one of my favorite cities, and every time that I've spent any time there, no one's ever identified as Canadian there. Everybody's Canadian and something else, right? That diversity of the city, they have such connective tissue to where they were born or where their parents are from, that diversity just brings an instant football culture. Do you feel like it's a little bit of a hidden gem, at least for people south of the border in the United States, to know just how big the football culture is in Toronto?
I do think that that's important. You know, when you look around the world, countries that have diversity, where the multiculturalism becomes a real part of football. Obviously, everybody around the world saw it the way the French team came together in '98, players with so many different backgrounds. I had an opportunity to work in France, and when you would look around the country and the academies and see players with such talent, different backgrounds. And I see a lot of that in and around Toronto. I see the opportunity for us with our academy to push things forward and take advantage of that type of diversity and that type of talent.
Well, Bob, I won't keep you any longer. Obviously, you're a man obsessed with doing the best that you can as a coach, getting the best out of your players. I never thought that you would even have potential room to be a head coach and a sporting director, but you're doing it all. We wish you all the best, and thank you so much for spending some time with us, and we look forward to seeing how the season plays out.
All right, Heath. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.